Bobby's Book Reviews. It's been a few months since I sat down and did a book review. That doesn't mean I have stopped reading books. I'm still gobbling them up. So I wanted to share this one in particular with you because recently it just came into the news that they just found the wreckage of this whole entire tale about, it's called the Endurance. That's the name of the ship that they just found, Shackleton's Incredible Voyage by Alfred Lansing. Now this story is just an unbelievable story of perseverance, heroism, and what it was like to be a man in the 1914, 1915. Because this Ernest Shackleton, he put out an ad in the newspaper in London that basically said, looking for men, low pay, not a lot of food, it's going to be dark, it's going to be cold, and more than likely you're going to die. And he actually had to turn people away. That's how many people were willing and wanting to go on a journey. You know, this story of a hero's journey is in almost all the good stories where men and women, they leave the comfort of their home and they go to somewhere unknown, out of their comfort zone. In this case, all the way to the South Pole. Now, as it's going, not only did people sign up to get paid, they actually had stowaways that got onto the boat somehow. So in total, there was 27 men on this Endurance. Now, if you look at the picture, you'll see that's the picture of the ship. So it wasn't some kind of like big icebreaker, modern ship that, you know, go to Antarctica and stuff like that. This is like just a regular, like a masted ship. And it was a huge journey. No one's ever been there. And obviously there's ice flows and glaciers. And they really didn't have an idea if they could actually do it. But Shackleton believed that he could. So the story goes, I'm not going to ruin all of it, but I'm just going to kind of give you some of the highlights of what I took away from it. That this story was just kind of page turner. I just did not want to put it down. And it's just a testament to when your push comes to shove and there's no other options, that when you work together and you keep hope. That's the whole message of the whole entire book, is this hope that they knew that they were going to be all right, that they were going to survive, that they were going to be rescued. So ultimately, they get trapped in the ice with their boat, and they're stuck there for like 10 months. And the ice literally just kind of encompasses the whole entire ship, and all their supplies, everything's on there. So they're kind of like just living on like ice, basically. And then the ice starts to move, and eventually the ship just sinks. So that's what got me to want to share with you, because they just found the ship in the ice, and it's just crazy because it's over 100 years later. Now we have the technology. They went and see the ship, which is mostly intact. So as the story goes on, it's just absolutely stunning how by having hope and trust, and when you're put to the test of survival, of how these men came together and they worked together and they sacrificed for each other to make it last and to make it work, to make their food last, to innovate, to hunt together. And lucky for them, near the South Pole, there's a lot of penguins, there's a lot of walruses and sea lions. And by shooting one of them, they would get a ton of food. But unfortunately, the blubber and all that stuff, it just didn't taste that good. But they had food. And they were able to, still kind of hang out, play cards. I mean, everything, though, was always soaking wet and ice cold freezing. So the story continues. They're trapped on this ice flows. And then the flows just keep moving. And this is going on for like another 18 months. And they finally had enough. They were like, well, we're going to take the small little boat. They were able to save a lot of stuff from the boat. So they took like one of the like rescue boats off the Endurance, and a small crew covered it and sailed 750 miles to go find help, to get a ship to come to them, because they didn't have cell phones, they didn't have GPS. And they were going to take this little dingy boat, which is about 20 feet, and sail through the most treacherous oceans with the wind and the waves, and go and have them come back. And the miraculous story of the whole thing. And then once they get there, they not only have to like wait for a boat, because they didn't just land like there's a city, here's a tugboat, it's going to come. They had to traverse over like this crazy mountain, over these glaciers that no one has ever, to this day, still has not climbed, to get to where the city was at. And through this whole thing, the people never lost hope. And that was part of it, that they knew that whether that was God or that what kind of faith that they had, or they just trusted in the captain, this Ernest Shackleton, because he was such a charismatic leader, and he exuded this confidence that the men got behind him. And at the end, not one person perished. I can't stand being outside in the cold for like 10 minutes. I couldn't imagine being out there, 18 months, eating and being soaked. Imagine just your socks being wet all the time and being in, the Antarctic, which is negative 50 below, and being surrounded by, most of the time it's being dark, and being on ice that's shifting and moving, and just, not knowing what's going to happen. But these men all came together, they all persevered, and not one of them lost their lives. So it's just a story of a journey, of a hero's journey, of someone trying to accomplish something that's never been done before. And if you're going to do something that no one else has ever done before, then you got to be willing to do something different. You got to be willing to do something that no one else has did. And that's what this whole book is about, the courage of this man who ventured, and he made it like within a mile of the Antarctic. He was basically there, but by the weather, it just encircled the whole boat, and then the ice was clamping down on the boat and put too much pressure on. And they were able to save a lot of the supplies out of there. That's what helped keep them alive in the hunting. But the story is a page turner. I highly recommend it. It's just amazing what people can put themselves through and survive. I know for me, I always, I can complain about, like I said, I don't like the cold, or if things are a little discomfort. But just knowing that God has created humans so resilient and so adaptable to what's around them, especially when it comes into survival, about how our bodies or how our minds can adapt to survive. We think a lot of times that, we couldn't do that, but you'd be surprised when we're put in that situation. I think they call it the Stockdale Paradox. I know that's, he was a guy who was in Vietnam, he was captured, was in a prisoner camp, but by keeping this hope and this paradox that a lot of the guys who didn't survive the Vietnam camps in these prisons and these tortures like John McCain was in, was that the people that lied to themselves, they would tell themselves, we're going to be getting out of here, we're going to be getting out of here. But that isn't what the Stockdale character did. He was realistic about the situation, but he kept hope that, no, we're probably not going to get out here anytime soon, so I need to make a plan for the next 3 months, 6 months, and a year on how I'm going to do it, but knowing ultimately that our hope is that we're going to be free. And that's, as Christians, that's our job, to know that this world is going to be full of suffering. There's going to be all kinds of things that we're going to face in our lives, whether that's a loss of a loved one, loss of a job, some kind of health issue. The suffering is guaranteed. But knowing that we can persevere, especially if we offer it up and invite Jesus into that suffering, and that we can transform it, because we know the ultimate goal is not here, but it's to be in heaven with God forever. So by keeping our eyes on the prize, that what's the things that we suffer through, not to minimize them or not to say that it doesn't hurt or it's not horrible on us, but sometimes God puts those things into our lives to help prune away the things that are separating us from Him or from others, and that God made us all pretty resilient and pretty tough. And when we're faced with these crises or we're put in these situations, you'd be surprised when you submit to God and you trust Him that He will help us get through these situations, and that the human spirit can conquer even the freezing cold, even being shipwrecked for years in the Antarctic, and be able to get through. That's what God has planned for you. That's what God has planned for all of us. So keep the hope, love, and trust in the plan. This is Bobby's book review. Once again, it's Endurance. Check it out. I use thriftbooks.com. That's how I get all my books. They're used books, but I love to mark them up and to make notes. So when I go back and I want to reference one, or there was a quote or a line, I can go back and find it pretty easy. So thriftbooks.com, we're not sponsored or anything, but you can get books for $2, $3. And I love the thrift stores for used books, but you got to kind of hunt for those. So this is it for this episode of Bobby's Book Reviews, Endurance. Give it a give it a whirl. You won't be disappointed. And I'll share in the descriptions the articles about how they found the ship just recently and the pictures. It's awesome. So thanks and God bless.